Good day, and welcome back to Horsemanship 101 again. Today I want to talk about what I believe is the most important component or aspect of good horsemanship, because it's a tricky thing that actually very few people even get, and it's not something new. It's been around for a long time. It's not something new for me either that I've talked about, but I don't think I've really promoted it quite like I should or expanded on it enough. See, I've done a couple of videos on the subject, or it's been in some videos. I actually did one that was pretty much specifically on this subject a while back. A couple of years ago, I did a video entitled, Good Horsemanship is a Mentality, Not a Method. And I think that pretty much sums it up, but I didn't go into as much detail as I'm going to today. I also have said you can't change a horse without changing you. More recently, I did a video where I explained why I don't do training videos, because I don't want people getting hung up on methods and techniques when I think that what I'm talking about, specifically what I'm going to talk about in this video, is probably far more important than any method or technique you're going to learn. And it's something else that it's actually pretty hard to teach, but I'm going to explain it because it's just so darn important. It bears repeating. And I'm going to share a story that I've read a couple of times about a couple of really good horsemen that most people know of. If you don't, you will hear of them if you're around horses long enough. If you don't, well, you should probably get new friends, because the two gentlemen are Tom Dorrance and Ray Hunt. And, I said they're two of the best that we know of, but that's just those that we know of, and I'm just going to not real critical, but Tom actually came from a very large family, and apparently he wasn't even the best horseman. He had a brother, Jeff, that we never even heard of, that was apparently a far better horseman than him. So just because you hear about somebody doesn't mean they're the best. But there's no doubt that both Tom and Ray were good. But anyhow, I'm going to get to the story, but I'm going to leave out a lot of details because just to speed things up a little bit. Early on in his life, Ray Hunt went to Tom Dorrance for help with his own horse, because Ray didn't start out as the great horseman that we came to know him as, and he struggled at first. I mean, like I said, nobody's born knowing anything, but I'm sure even at this point he was probably a far better horseman than most people could ever possibly achieve. He had methods and techniques down really good, but he's still having problems. So he goes to Tom with his horse, and they actually spent a few days together. And I think it was the third day, Tom kind of looks at Ray and watches what he's doing, and he was still struggling with something. And every time the horse would get a little bit upset, he'd kind of pause and rub it down, real gentle. And Tom says, "No, your hand's too hard." Ray kind of gets taken aback by that. And he says, "What do you mean my hand's too hard? I'm rubbing them as gentle as I can." He says, No. It comes from inside." And with that, he taps his chest where his heart is. And he says, "That's what makes your hand hard or soft." And all of a sudden, Ray kind of pauses, takes a step back, thinks for a minute about how much he likes his horse and everything else. And I do believe that was a pivotal moment in Ray's life. Well, at least his life with horses anyhow. At that point, he understood what was truly important. And, all of a sudden, he changed inside. And when he changed inside, his hand changed. And when he was stroking his horse, all of a sudden the horse changed without doing anything else. Now, I'm sure he was, like I said, at that point in his life, he was probably already a far better horseman than most people will ever be. He had methods and techniques mastered quite nicely. But his hand that he was rubbing that horse with, that was his methods and techniques. What changed inside of him, that was his mentality. And that's what changed who he was and how he did things. And when he changed, the horse changed. Because suddenly, without doing anything else, the horse was suddenly willing to do things that he'd been struggling with for a very long time. That horse finally came around, and he didn't do anything. All he did was change. And that's why I stress to people so much the importance of the proper mentality and being willing to change and being willing to learn. And it's not just about methods and techniques, because there are people out there that spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on videos, DVDs, books, going to clinics, all this stuff. They've learned all the master's best methods and techniques that there are to learn. And they're still struggling because the thing they have not learned is mentality and what they have to change inside of them in order to make all those methods and techniques work. I'll give you another example. It's kind of like having a super nice car sitting in the yard. Really beautiful car, but the fuel tank is empty. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that car. It is a gorgeous car, but with an empty tank, it's pretty much useless. And that's kind of how it works. If you've got, the methods and techniques mastered, but you don't have that change inside of you, your methods and techniques are, pretty much useless. They're not going to work. Now, there's exceptions to that. Depending on the person that you are, you might not be that far off the mark in the first place, depending on the nature of the horse, the nature of the problem. There's a lot of variables there. You may actually be able to get by with methods and techniques alone. A lot of people have actually, and that happens. And it might work. But if you truly want to excel, and you truly want to become an exceptional horseman, it's more than methods and techniques that you got to master. It's an attitude you have to have, a mentality. It's something inside of you that's got to change. And that's the most important component. If you truly want to get good, you've got to master that stuff. So the most important aspect of horsemanship, it's not a method or technique that you're going to learn anywhere. In fact, it's not even something you can really teach. I'm explaining it as best I can, but that's about it. And I am having a hard time because I can't even tell you exactly what it is inside of you that has to change. Only you know that. And it's an individual thing, one at a time. You got to figure it out. But, like I said, I'm not underplaying the importance of methods and techniques. You need that stuff to be truly effective as well. But they don't work near as well without the right mentality. If you got the right mentality and the methods and techniques, you're going places. But even if your methods and techniques aren't all that great, if you got the right mentality, you might do okay. Because for those of you that have been watching a lot of my videos, you know that I do liberty work with my horses. I do a lot of strange stuff that most people don't do. And I've never seen most of what I do. I've never seen examples of it in videos. I've never read about it in books. I've never met anybody that does it. I've had to just kind of make it up and figure it out on my own. But I had the right mentality in the first place, and the horses themselves, I'd trained them with the right basics. That I kind of put the pieces together and figured it out for myself. And again, that's another one of the reasons I don't like doing training videos, because a lot of the stuff is I just make it up as I go, and it's different for every horse. Which brings me to another thing is, I've said before, there's no one right answer. And one of Tom's favorite answers to people that ask him for a solution to a problem is, it all depends. And that's about as accurate as you can get, too, because it depends on you, depends on the horse, depends on the situation, depends on the problem. There are so many variables that combine to make each and every situation unique. It all depends. So that's one of those things. But if you got the right mentality, you'll figure it out. And if you get the right methods and techniques, that's great too. But if you really want those methods and techniques to work well, again, the most important thing is your mentality. You've got to change what's inside of you. You got to have a change of heart. You got to care about that horse, and you got to strive to do your best for it, because that horse doesn't owe you a darn thing. You owe it to them. Have a good day.